Tonight on The Wrap, Burnham begins. On his first full day as Prime Minister, he tells his cabinet they must be a cost-of-living government. But behind the smiles, cracks already begin to emerge over how he'll pay for his plan to cut taxes. Also tonight, the new Defense Secretary gives Sky News his reaction to the live-fire exercises conducted by a Russian warship in the English Channel.
Performative and irresponsible. It's not the first time that Russia has behaved like this, and frankly, it's the tip of the iceberg of the daily threats that this country faces.
Prosecutors claim that Anne Widdecombe was killed after being struck on the head with a hammer 21 times as she ate lunch. And Britain's biggest water company announces a hosepipe ban for 10 million customers, as experts warn that parts of England have moved a step closer to an official drought. We discuss the day's biggest stories with the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Soda and the political commentator Adam Bolton. Plus, we'll take a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers at 1:30. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Sonia, Adam, welcome both. Now, Andy Burnham began his first full day as Prime Minister with an announcement that he was cutting VAT on energy bills as part of his big push to tackle the cost of living. But just 2 hours later, the infighting began, with his plans criticised by the Labour MP Darren Jones, a man sacked from Downing Street just yesterday. Sonia, Adam, Sonia, we start with you. It didn't take long, did it?
No, I was actually surprised to see it. I would have thought that ministers who were sacked might have kept their counsel a little longer. But I think overall it's been a good start for Andy Burnham. He's made some eye-catching announcements. Obviously, the detail has to be worked out on how that VAT cut will be paid for, and some very smart appointments to his cabinet.
Adam?
Well, I was a bit surprised it came from Darren Jones. After all, hours earlier, he'd posted a picture of himself in a pub saying thank you and goodbye, see you in September. It
only took a few hours to get back on Twitter.
Maybe he had too many pints and it made him angry. I mean, the truth of the matter is, he is right at one level that this is an unfunded promise. But the problem is, he's standing it up by making it clear that the Starmer government made unfunded promises as well.
We'll get into it in more detail during the programme, because the question is, can Mr Burnham really deliver on his promise to tackle the cost of living and give people a sense that help is coming? Our political editor Beth Rigby reports.
The morning after a reshuffle that stretched late into the night, the same Labour government, but now a new-look cabinet, as Andy Burnham's allies took the top jobs.
Lucy Powell, are you happy to be Education Secretary? Yeah, and can you keep the party united? Shabana Mahmood, are you disappointed not to be Chancellor? Happy with your job? Ed Miliband, are you happy to be Foreign Secretary, sir? You not sad about the Chancellorship, sir?
As Andy Burnham's allies took top jobs, in a ruthless purge of those loyal to the last leader.
Wes Streeting, can the party unite in this cabinet? Isn't it a vicious cull of Starmer allies, sir? Angela Rayner, can the party stay united under Andy Burnham? Is it a nest of singing birds, sir? Johnny Reynolds, can the party remain united, sir?
Some of the old guard who called for Starmer to go themselves stayed, joined in the Downing Street gardens by the Burnham backers who got their man here. Burnham convening his very first cabinet.
Can I just say, I expect this every meeting.
At the height of his power and with a very clear message.
We need to be a cost of living government. Life's hard out there, isn't it, at the moment?
Burnham using his first full day in office to make a down payment on his pledge to give people a bit more breathing space, with a cut to VAT on energy bills from October the 1st, saving you £45 a year and costing the government £850 million.
We've made a start today. We made the announcement about removing VAT from household electricity bills. It's not everything, but it shows our determination to do something about people's living standards, and it kind of points the way for further measures that we hope to take that pressure off people. But also it comes with reprioritisation, and you'll have seen what I've said about digital ID.
Burnham dropping plans for new ID cards to pay for cuts to energy bills, whilst seeking to reassure the markets his more left-wing government will maintain fiscal discipline.
We've got to show that our commitment to the fiscal rules is real, and we're prepared to make difficult decisions in relation to that.
But for all the smiles in the cabinet room, the Labour Party not a nest of singing birds. Burnham's first major policy announcement already facing soundings off, as former Chief Secretary to the PM and architect of the digital ID programme, Darren Jones, tweeted the scheme was unfunded and that the government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget. Payback perhaps for the purge, Harriet Harman unimpressed.
I need to speak to my colleagues who've been sacked from the cabinet and just say nobody wants to hear bitterness and resentment, and everybody wants this new regime to succeed, and that's for the good of the country and for the good of the party.
Burnham has made much of ending factionalism and bringing the Labour Party back together. But his cabinet picks were anything but, with 11 Starmer loyalists purged from the top table and another couple only hanging on by their fingertips. This may have been a bloodless coup, but this reshuffle was vicious, and some of the bad blood spilled was on show today. After talking a good game on unity, Burnham's first act failed to follow through. The next act is getting on with the job and cutting the cost of living. This something Starmer promised too, but failed to land. Burnham wants his new team to succeed, but his reshuffle may well make that a harder task. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
And let's get the views of Sonia and Adam. Adam, Burnham had talked about a one Labour team. It's not looking like that already.
Well, around a dozen senior people in the Starmer government were dispensed with. The only one who we can tell went voluntarily is former Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who apparently was offered the job reportedly of Secretary of State for Education. One wonders, important job, why she didn't want to take that.
Agreed.
And this is the way politics works. People bring in their own team. So I think it does look a little bit sharp, frankly, of Darren Jones to be tweeting on this point right away. And, you know, Harriet Harman, who is, you know, a really senior figure in the party, I mean, she's been in government, she's been sacked from government, she's served under different ministers. I mean, this, to a certain extent, is how politics works. And I doubt that there's going to be much patience within the Labour Party, the parliamentary party, for sniping of this kind, you know, not least because, you know, they all nominated Andy Burnham. At the same time, the one point I would make is that he does seem to be rather obviously promoting the people who are in on the plot, you know, who went out publicly and said he should go. Well, John Healey did, Wes Streeting did, and now tonight reports that Anna Sarwar, who was actually the first person to call for Keir Starmer to go, the leader of Scottish Labour, he apparently is slated for a peerage and a ministerial role.
We're going to be talking about that in more detail in just a moment. But Sonia, first, your views. I mean, obviously, Darren Jones was, relieved of his post just yesterday, but he does say that the digital ID scheme wasn't funded, and so the money isn't there.
Yeah, so, you know, Andy Burnham and John Healey are going to have to sit down and work out where it comes from, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about that in the days to come. I think journalists would have picked up on that point fairly quickly, though. It was in an OBR report that I heard quoted all day today that this was not sort of, the digital ID scheme was going to be funded from savings from departments that were yet to be found. Some departments may have found some of that already. It didn't really need Darren Jones necessary to put sort of rocket boosters on the story. I'm kind of the same view as Adam, which is that this is the way that politics works. When there's a changing of the guard, people who've sort of made their views known, been very loyal to the leader who's no longer in post, some of them are going to get shifted out. That is literally what happens. So I just don't think all this briefing that we're seeing about how this is incredibly factional, for me, it doesn't really stack up, particularly when you look at the shape of the cabinet. It's actually, in my view, a very broad church unity cabinet. You've got people widely perceived to be on the right of the party in really important jobs. John Healey as Chancellor, Shabana Mahmood stays as Home Secretary, which is where we know she wants to be. Of course, Andy Burnham has promoted some of his close allies, as you would expect. Lou Hay is sort of effectively the de facto Prime Minister. That is literally how politics works. He hasn't kicked out everyone from the right
Pat
of the party.
McFadden's there, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Pat McFadden in welfare. I think he's sending a clear signal that he isn't going to do a massive shift to the left. It's a unity cabinet. It's just that the people who've been sat don't like it.
And a government that he says is going to be all about the cost of living. So let's take a closer look now at whether or not the Prime Minister's big announcement on his plan to cut energy bills is really going to help households. Our business and economics correspondent, Paul Kelso, has been taking a closer look.
Andy Burnham has said he wants to give people breathing space against the cost of living, and he started with an energy announcement. Electricity, to be precise. VAT will be cut from 5% to 0%, saving the average household about £45 a year. Now, no one's going to complain about that. And Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have taken a very different approach. But compared to the long-term challenges facing our energy system, well, they will take more than an overnight fix. Let's see how that £45 measures up against the overall cost of electricity. This shows the Ofgem energy price cap sets the maximum you can be charged for gas and electricity. You can see that spike in prices after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They've settled back, though not to pre-war norms, down to about £1,700 a day. A little tick up here reflecting the Iran war in April. This is the forecast for October, when this £45 will come off bills, but you can see it's a small amount. And we should say that Rachel Reeves resisted doing exactly this step as she was pressured over energy bills. She argued that any intervention should be targeted on the least well-off. This has cost £850 million, but it's spread very thin. And in fact, those who spend more on electricity generally have the bigger houses as a result of bigger incomes. Well, they will save the most as a result of this. So what's driving these energy prices? Well, a big chunk of it is gas prices. It's the fuel of last resort in our system. And this is this year's prices. You can see the jump after the Iran war began, dropped back a bit, actually been rising recently, but it's nothing like, if we look back over 5 years, these spikes after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And that caused the government to step in to essentially underwrite all our energy bills. And these wholesale prices are important, but if you look at the overall cost of electricity, they're not as important as they used to be. This breaks down what goes into our electricity bills. Of that £1,600-1,700, about £900 is electricity. There's the slice of VAT that's coming off. But those wholesale prices, which include those gas prices and fluctuate, they're less than a third, just as important as what's called network costs and policy costs. This has got loads of fixed costs that don't fluctuate, that are linked to our expansion of the grid to cope with all the new renewables, sometimes balancing the grid, actually paying wind farms to switch off because the grid can't handle all the power that's being pumped through it, and policy costs to underwrite renewables. So these fixed costs are becoming just as important as wholesale costs, and they're one of the reasons electricity is actually 3 times the price of gas, which is putting people off low-carbon technologies like electric vehicles and heat pumps. So this is the real challenge facing our energy system. And the Chancellor, how do you fundamentally bring down bills which are nearly the highest in the developed world to something more affordable? Compared to that challenge, 5% VAT being cut, well, that's low-hanging fruit.
And their chief political correspondent, John Craig, has joined us in the studio. John, how much of it is symbolic? Because people aren't going to feel it that much in their pockets.
Well, he's been talking about the cost of living ever since it became clear he was going to take over as Prime Minister. This energy price cut he's announced this morning, it's estimated about £45 it'll be save typical families. We do know, though, that he's going to announce a few more cost of living measures later in the week. One of them may well be easing the business rates on hospitality venues. He talked about that during the Makerfield by-election campaign, and he's talked about bringing down other household bills as well. Now, on the Darren Jones point, of course, it's not costed. Oh, yes, it is, said 10 Downing Street at the briefing for political correspondents. So there's an argument about that. And, of course... I
mean, they haven't said... They said it's costed, but they haven't said how.
No, exactly. That's right. And, of course, John Healey, of course, has been sent into the Treasury. No doubt the Prime Minister said to him, well, you wanted more spending on defence, you find the money.
Let's now talk about some peerages that have been announced.
They haven't.
What can you tell us?
This is the point. Carry on up the reshuffle.
Go on.
Last night we were kept waiting until after 11 o'clock at night for the last cabinet post. Where are we now? We're about 10:15. We were promised a list of ministers of state. For example, what's going to happen to Dan Jarvis, who was removed from the Minister of Defence, but the announcement last night did not say he's leaving the government. So we're waiting for those, have been all evening. Now, clearly, something's gone wrong. And what appears to have gone wrong is that somebody has let the cat out of the bag on Anas Sarwar. Now, he is the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, who you will remember in February called for Keir Starmer to go. Cynics will say he's getting his reward, a peerage and a job as a Minister of State for Trade, apparently. Now, Mr Sarwar is interesting for all sorts of reasons. He is the son of a cash-and-carry millionaire, Mohammed Sarwar. He inherited his common seat back in 2010, lost it, became an MSP, then, of course, leader of the Scottish group. Now, they had a very bad result in May. There were plenty of calls for him to go. They lost 5 seats, were level with Reform on 17, SNP 58. In May, after those elections, he said, no, I'm staying on. Absolutely, I'm staying on as leader. In July, are you going to the House of Lords? No, I'm focused on becoming First Minister of our country. And not only that, he has called on a number of occasions for, yes, the abolition of the House of Lords. He said it's got no place in 21st century politics. So there we go. All the signs are he's going to get a peerage, just not officially confirmed yet.
It's got to be said, so have most of the Liberal Democrat members of the House of Lords call for its abolition.
Well, I guess their argument would be, if we've got to have it, it's better with me in it.
I guess. Well, it's been a busy couple of days for the new government, and the newly appointed Defence Secretary, Wes Streeting, has accused Russia of being irresponsible after it emerged that a Russian warship fired its weapons in a live-fire exercise yesterday not far off the coast of Plymouth. Mr. Streeting has been speaking to our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, who has this report.
Russian naval power nearing UK waters. Sky News filmed this warship in the North Sea as it received supplies from a second vessel. Days later, the same frigate conduct a live fire exercise some 40 nautical miles off the coast of Plymouth. It happened a couple of hours before Andy Burnham was sworn in as Prime Minister. Coincidence? Few think so.
We should see yesterday's events as performative and irresponsible. It's not the first time that Russia has behaved like this, and frankly, it's the tip of the iceberg of the daily threats that this country faces and our allies face.
An immediate test, then, for Britain's new Defence Secretary. Wes Streeting may be a novice in the role, but his department, for once, has the backing of a Chancellor who understands the threat and the urgent need to rearm. And that matters.
I'm absolutely delighted that my friend and predecessor, John Healey, has taken on the challenge of Chancellor of the Exchequer. His position on defence investment is on the record, as is mine.
This can surely only mean one thing. many billions of pounds more must be found for the military, as Healey has previously called for defence spending to rise to 3% of GDP by 2030. The mood inside defence about Wes Streeting being the new boss is actually pretty optimistic. Yes, he's got no background in military matters, but people I've spoken to point to the fact that he is smart, he's got experience of running a complex department in health, he's a risk taker, he's willing to speak his mind. These are all crucial skills for the new Defence Secretary as he turns his hand to converting what looks set to be an even bigger, faster increase in defence spending in the coming years into hard, credible military power. This former naval officer says the Russian warship and its timely test firing underlines why defence must be a priority for the new government.
The Prime Minister needs to take away from this that this threat, such as it is getting closer and closer to the UK mainland. This is a manifestation of the Russian squeeze.
But a Kremlin spokesman tried to downplay the incident.
All exercises and actions of our warships are carried out in strict accordance with international maritime law. Therefore, there is no need to see any hints here.
Unlikely the Defence Secretary will see it that way. Key, though, will be whether this is the moment the UK really does shift to a war footing. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
I mean, Sonia, we've been so focused, obviously, on domestic issues because of a change of government. And this, a timely reminder of just how many threats there are. And many of the decisions that Wes Streeting, who doesn't really have experience in this field, is going to have to face.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I actually think defence has become really elevated to become one of the most important briefs in Cabinet in recent years. The way we defend ourselves as a country in this increasingly uncertain, unstable world when there doesn't appear to be enough money on the table for defence funding. Hugely important. So I think it's a real sign that Andy Burnham has put a capable minister like Wes Streeting, someone who's widely thought to have performed quite well at health, into that brief. I'd say it's a very important job, possibly even more important than Foreign Secretary. And I think how Wes Streeting and John Healey hash out the resources that will be available for defence over the next 4 to 5 years and how they get spent critically, where Streeting was very clear about that. It's not just about chucking money at the problem any which way, it's about how we procure stuff for defence as well. That is really going to help shape the future of the country, I think. So really important job.
And that, of course, the reason why John Healey stood down.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is easy stuff. Just look at what's been going on in Ukraine with an argument over the direction of very successful defence forces in Ukraine, leading to the sacking of the defence minister. I mean, Sonia's absolutely right. What you spend the money on is going to be important. There was that suggestion that we were going to go slow on our frigate programme to spend more money on drones. Does that still stand with the change of government? We'll have to see. And clearly, the big challenge now for both Healey and Wes Streeting is to come up with the money to fulfil what Britain has committed to. And presumably, we may have to wait until the budget to actually see that.
What did you make of Wes Streeting's specific response here, accusing Russia of being irresponsible?
I thought he struck the right tone, actually. I thought he struck the right tone on Russia. I thought he struck the right tone on defence and defence spending more generally. I think it's a good sign that he's been put into this brief, I do.
I mean, I understand that, as is being said, it was legal. This took place in international waters, but Russia did not follow the usual procedures of forewarning people. It was a big shells that were being fired, 100 millimetre apparently, which can ricochet quite badly. And there was basically just one warning to a vessel, we're going to start doing that. And, when you do a military exercise at sea, that is not normally what you do. You normally enable all the ships in the region to be informed about this and to know what's happening. So that, I think, is it's typical Russian behaviour, but it's irresponsible.
Sonia, it was interesting that you said that you could argue that the defence brief is almost more important than Foreign Secretary, but then you have a Prime Minister that we know doesn't have a lot of experience when it comes to international issues, and a Defence Secretary that has no military issues, no foreign policy, no security experience. I'm not doubting his skills, but I'm just wondering, you know, that specific experience of knowing how to handle the Russians or Trump when it will come to...
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we have a lot of experts in the armed forces, in the civil service, in the foreign service when it comes to the Foreign Office. I think it's not always the case that you have to have direct experience, for example, of serving or as working as a doctor to be a great defence secretary or health secretary. I think what's most important is your communication skills, your judgment, being able to take decisions. So I think that's more important, actually, a more important set of characteristics in a defence minister than whether they've served or not.
And in defence of Ed Miliband, the new Foreign Secretary, he was very involved in international diplomacy on environmental issues and all that. And a lot of those people he was dealing with there have now moved on to more senior positions in their national governments. He also is an ex-party leader, and party leaders participate in international meetings as well. So I think, you know, he has got the experience. But basically, this is how government works. The people in government are professional politicians.
Yeah.
And they are given a job of oversight and policy making in a whole range of areas. But it's not like, you know, you have a teacher in charge of education, a doctor in charge of health, and a soldier in charge of defence. Some people might think that'd be a better way of doing it, but it's simply not the way we've ever done it.
Okay, let's move on to another story now. And prosecutors say that former MP Anne Widdecombe was hit on the head 21 times before being found dead at her home in Devon. 28-year-old Joshua Carey has been charged with her murder and remanded into custody. Let's go live now to the Old Bailey and speak to Sky's Amelia Harper. Amelia, what else was said in court?
Yeah, well, today, the 28-year-old British national Joshua Carey appeared in court charged with the murder of the former Tory MP and recently Reform UK spokeswoman Anne Widdecombe. He was remanded this afternoon in custody. Prosecutors today set out a series of allegations. They said, firstly, that Anne Widdecombe was hit 21 times over the head with a hammer before she was... Excuse me. I'll start that again. Prosecutors said that Anne Widdecombe was struck 21 times on the head with a hammer at her home in Devon as she ate her lunch. In their words, prosecutors said this was a planned and targeted attack. A provisional cause of death has been determined as blunt force trauma to the head. Prosecutors also today said that Carey arrived in a red car at her home before entering through the front door. They said he was only in the property for a couple of minutes before taking her wallet and then exiting the scene in the same car. We heard in court today that Anne Widdecombe was meant to have attended a Channel 5 interview, however, on the day of her death. However, producers say they weren't able to contact her, and so they asked her assistant to get in touch with her gardener. The gardener found her in her kitchen with a serious head injury on the next day, on the 9th of July. And then a few days later, on the 11th of July, Carey was arrested on suspicion of murder in Rotherham. Police say they continue to explore any motivation behind the attack. He will next appear here on the 9th of October for a case management hearing, and a provisional trial date has been listed for June 2027.
Amelia Harper, outside the Old Bailey. Amelia, thank you. Well, the Anne Widdecombe case is on the front of a number of tomorrow's newspapers. We're going to take a first look at the front pages after this break. Don't go away.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Well, time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. The Metro reports on the court appearance of the man accused of murdering the former Conservative politician Anne Widdecombe, including the allegation from prosecutors that she was hit 21 times in the head with a hammer. The suspect, Joshua Carey, is pictured on the front of the Mirror being driven away from court. The same image appears on the front of the Express. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads with Andy Burnham urging his newly formed cabinet to put the cost of living at the centre of their efforts. The Eye carries that rallying cry, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. But according to the Financial Times, the new Prime Minister has already abandoned discussions around increasing the personal income tax allowance. The Daily Mail asks the question, who is going to pay for Andy Burnham's spending spree, saying the second day of the new PM has seen a raft of uncosted policies. Meanwhile, the Telegraph hears that 2 men jailed for killing police officer Andrew Harper could soon be released as part of an attempt to ease overcrowding in prisons. Okay, let's take a closer look at the papers with Sonia and Adam. Unsurprisingly, there's loads on Burnham and, the second day now of government and a lot of his promises. And I think the Eye kind of catches, it's almost like, I don't know, a bit of a mantra, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. Adam, really driving this point home.
Yeah, I think this is probably a bit of an echo of when Tony Blair came to power and it was education as the mantra. And perhaps it shows how things have changed. We've gone from the aspirational idea of education to
just surviving.
To the immediate, just surviving and the cost of living. And this was what Andy Burnham said yesterday on the doorstep of Number 10. It's what he said today to his cabinet. There is just one point bearing in mind, which is that politicians can't actually control the cost of living. I mean, it's global factors, the rate of interest, the rate of growth and all that. So they can do palliative things like we saw the gesture on energy, the £45. But,
it's all about the Strait of Hormuz and the energy costs.
It's a big gamble, because, with education, you could actually say, well, we're going to spend more money on teachers, we're going to have more university places. Cost of living is a tougher nut to crack.
I guess he is telling, though, his cabinet, his government, that has to be the priority.
Yeah, and I mean, that very much reflects the 2024 Labour manifesto, doesn't it? So I think Andy Burnham is keenly aware that at the heart of that manifesto was restoring Britain to a healthy growth rate, tackling the cost of living. So these are things that he's got a mandate to do. But as Adam says, he's a different man, he's a different Prime Minister with a different skill set, I think probably better suited to being Prime Minister than Keir Starmer. But at the end of the day, he does face some of the same very difficult constraints that Keir Starmer did. And, the fundamentals are, we've got an economy that has basically been stagnant for 20 years. Living standards have been stagnant. We've done some things that have hurt growth, like Brexit. We've got a massively unstable global climate with global energy prices spiking. This isn't 1997. So I think all the stuff that he's planning on doing, like taking money off energy bills, we're going to come on to talk about the story in the Mirror about a £2 freeze on bus fares. These are not things to be sniffed at. They are things that can make a difference. The problem is that in the grand scheme of, say, rising inflation or rising energy prices, which are much more determined by global factors, these things can start to feel like small fry.
And highlighting, forgive me, Adam, let's just look at the Financial Times before going to you, where he says Burnham backs away from the rise in tax allowance, so that's the personal tax allowance that's frozen, to show fiscal discipline, so hammering home the point that they will stick to that as well.
Yeah, he was talking about what he was hearing on the doorstep and lower paid workers feeling that by not increasing the tax threshold at which you start paying tax, people were really feeling that. And he frankly hinted pretty much that he was going to do something about it. And the suggestion was that perhaps he was going to pay for that by putting up the top rate of tax from 45 to 50 pence. Yeah. Now, that would have been a pretty big move, bearing in mind that he had also said he was going to honour the manifesto commitment not to put up taxes, the main rates of tax, VAT, income tax, and national insurance. So he appears to have backed off from that, is the answer, which means that that clawback of inflation taking more and more people into that area, in the area paying tax, is going to continue. Should just make one point. There's been a lot of comment on it today. In the bullet points on the front of the eye, they say that there are 17 out of 28 of the members of the cabinet went to either Oxford or Cambridge University, which is apparently the greatest proportion ever in a cabinet of Oxbridge graduates.
Your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I suppose the stats don't lie, do they? But it's a diverse cabinet in other ways, I would say. It's 50-50 gender balance. Yeah.
But Sonia, forgive me, you did mention the buses, and that's actually pages 6 and 7 of the Mirror, reintroducing £2 daily bus cap.
Yes, that's right. So, again, I think this is something like VAT on energy bills, which it's not going to make huge differences necessarily to people's budgets, but it will help at the margins. And I think Andy Burnham will be hoping that it shows the public that he's a Prime Minister who really cares about how much money they've got at the end of the month, and he's trying to do these things that are within the gift of the government to sort of help.
Okay. But buses have become his kind of signature.
Yes, that's true.
Because of
Manchester.
What he did in Manchester. And again, another piece of trivia that's emerged today. There are more members of the Cabinet with a tattoo of the Manchester bus bee than there are Old Etonians. 3 of them apparently have got a tattoo of the bee, and there's only 1 Old Etonian.
Wow.
That's quite a fact. So which ones have a tattoo of the bee, do we know?
Well, it's probably the ones from Manchester.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. So Lucy Powell?
Yeah.
Andy Burnham?
I don't know.
OK, well, yeah, anyway.
This is what they're saying on social media.
Okay.
I haven't scrutinised.
Good piece of trivia.
Yeah.
There. OK, let's go to another story, very different tone as well, from page of the Daily Telegraph. A headline there, PC Harper's killers set for early release, and that's the officer that was dragged for over a mile, and now the pair are among those eligible to be freed. And of course the issue is, Sonia, prison overcrowding.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a scheme that was passed, I think, when Shabana Mahmood was Justice Secretary. Essentially, prisons were just getting too full. And so the government absolutely had to act, and that is partly because the previous government didn't build enough new prisons. But this shows, you know, the real sharp end of this and the difficulties of it, which is that somebody is eligible under this scheme who killed a police officer in a horrible way in the course of committing a crime. And obviously this generates a lot of anger. The idea that you might be able to kill an emergency services worker in the course of committing a crime and still qualify for an early release scheme. So I think the government are going to come under a lot of pressure to make exceptions for these sorts of cases in this scheme, I suspect.
I mean, they were sentenced to 13 years, and presumably this means that they'd be let out after 6 or 7. Interestingly, to Sonia's point, there is a lot of word tonight that there is briefings that the Burnham government has said it's not going to be bound by 3 policies that were announced by the Starmer government. They are the Chagos Islands deal, the whole question of phasing out jury trial, and the extra early release programme because of prison overcrowding. Right. So they're saying they're not going to be bound by that. Whether they end up doing the same thing, we shall have to wait and see.
OK. Let's end on a very different story, which is the World Cup, which sort of like ended, and we were so busy talking about the government that we sort of, perhaps it hasn't had the focus that it could have had. But it's a Daily Express, and here it says, you're destroying football. So Gianni Infantino, the head of FIFA, facing accusations, calls to resign even, for a lot of, let's call them controversial decisions or strange happenings during the World Cup. What have you made of this?
Well, there were definitely question marks about the structure of the competition, the hydration breaks, this crazy half-hour, half-time.
Very Super Bowl.
Very the Americanization. But the most controversial decision of all, of course, was Trump appearing to sort of say, well, it's ridiculous that this American player, I don't even know what his name is, got this red card and can't play in a game. And then FIFA just seemed to roll over. That was hugely controversial, and quite rightly so.
And Trump photobombing the picture of the victorious team. He tried to get in, and even Infantino felt that was too much.
Tried to pull him away.
But I mean, look, there's a basic problem. Infantino is the dictator, the president of FIFA. He is trying to expand it internationally to make the game of football bigger and bigger, and of course that gets more revenues. And the controversial thing that's happened now is he's saying that he wants the next World Cup, which I think is in Saudi Arabia, another place.
No, there's Morocco, Spain, Portugal, and Saudi Arabia is the one after.
But he wanted to go to 64 teams.
From 48.
Yeah, he's already taken up from 32 to 48. He wants to go to 64. And of course, the point about that is...
Even more expensive.
And huge strain
it'd be
on
more
the
expensive, and just about everybody would be in. You know, so you wouldn't have a situation where, for example, a big football nation like Italy where you've just been, ends up being excluded. But clearly that is for ka-ching reasons rather than actually...
Well, there's getting a lot of pushback.
Exciting competition.
So we'll see. We'll see. But listen, staying in the United States, the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has been heckled over the war in Iran as he gave evidence tonight to the US Senate. Protesters held up photos of Iranian children thought to be among the 156 people killed when a primary school in the southern Iranian city of Minab was bombed at the very start of the war. And Mr. Hegseth was interrupted a number of times as he gave evidence.
You're against this illegal war. This is against Iranian people, 19 million people. Your hands are blood of 17 Americans and 4,000...
The witness will...
Well, protesters could be heard shouting, "Stop bombing our children in Iran and Palestine. This is illegal." Let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews, who joins us now. I mean, of course, the US say that this particular attack in Minab, which of course happened on the very, very first day of the war back in February, they've had an investigation, but they're not releasing the results.
Yes, Barbara, you know, Hegseth and Dan Kane, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, remember, they are the two men at the top of the US military prosecuting this Iran war. There's a question for them. It's a question that we have asked of members of the Trump administration, including the boss himself. This is the first time that we've been exposed to Hegseth and Kane. And, you know, they are well insulated, this pair. They were today heading towards this Senate hearing where they're asking for more cash to maintain the war effort. But we've been asking the Americans about the Minab school bombing. More than 150 people were killed. Remember, a security insider told us that human error was responsible and that Trump denials are undermining transparency in terms of establishing publicly who was behind this catastrophic error. I took the opportunity to ask the question of Hegseth and Kane today. Like I say, you know, they are two individuals well insulated, so it was a long shot in terms of getting an answer, but listen to the exchange, Barbara, on Capitol Hill a couple of hours ago. General Kane, are you hiding the truth about the Minab school bombing? Secretary Hegseth, are you hiding the truth, sir, over the Minab school bombing? Are you hiding the truth? There you go, Barbara. This session on Capitol Hill, like I say, was the two men, the top brass, asking for extra money to maintain the ever-extending war effort. Pete Hegseth, He called it an urgent, necessary injection of funds, said that was what was required. They were giving evidence to senators on Capitol Hill, but not before, as you say, protesters disrupted Pete Hegseth, certainly inside the room. There was a number of them. One was led out shouting, "Stop bombing our children." The two men, Karen Hegseth, they used to appear, remember, regularly before the media, weekly press conferences at the Pentagon. They haven't done that since May, nor have they appeared before senators. So this was it was a rare opportunity for senators to interrogate the war, the plan, the exit strategy, casualties which are increasing, including, of course, US service personnel. A chance really for senators to ask what they are getting for their money, all the while in a situation where political opposition is becoming more acute as costs grow, and so does the casualty count. On the list of concerns, clearly, on Capitol Hill, there is Manab, but there is much more.
James Matthews with the latest on that from Washington. James, as always, thank you. And back to Sonia and Adam in the studio. I mean, Adam, there's a huge reluctance on the part of the U.S. government and from the president himself, who for a long time was denying it had anything to do with the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point is that, you know, back in the Second World War, both sides targeted civilians, and that's what they said they did. But now the military strategy is to say we're only going for strategic and military targets, and therefore when accidentally or a large number of civilians, or in this case children, are hit, it becomes very awkward. We had this during the Iraq invasion, when I remember there was a shelter that was bombed and a lot of people were killed. But generally speaking, in the past, in the end, people have admitted if something's gone wrong, they've done it. But the style of the Trump administration is just to bluster through, to ignore it, because what they care about is the domestic audience. And if the domestic audience is not given a cast iron admission, it allows them to go on saying, you know, well, you know, it's not proven, nothing to do with us.
Yeah, because actually the accusation isn't that they targeted civilians. It just seems to be that the attack happened because of out-of-date information of what was actually in that building.
Yeah, absolutely. And in normal circumstances, you would expect, as Adam says, for an admission to be made, that a mistake was made. But, you know, this isn't a normal US administration. What I do wonder, though, is, you know, how much support there really is for this war domestically in the US. I really don't think that Trump understood what he was getting himself into. I think he thought there was going to be regime change quickly. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think we've seen a US casualty.
A couple of the past few days.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think this is going to get him into hot water domestically.
And it does seem to be escalating. But there's a QR code on your screen. Iran school bombing, the search for truth, a special Sky News investigation about the possible causes to that attack in that school in Manab. Now, coming up, a warning that parts of the country have moved a step closer to officially being in drought.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but two women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism? I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well, I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Oof. OK, nothing to see here. Drama over.
Full stop.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
She will be mortified. She's the first female chancellor. I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
The Environment Agency has warned that large parts of southern, central and eastern England have moved closer to official drought status. After the third heat wave of the year, several areas are now in a period of prolonged dry weather, the stage just before drought. And this comes as Thames Water announces a hosepipe ban for more than 10 million people after what they described as exceptionally high demand following the hot weather. Sonia, Adam, I mean, it has been, in fairness, a really hot summer with 3 heat waves, two of which were quite strong. But Sonia, what have you made of all of this? Because, Thames Water obviously has issues as well.
Definitely, and I think lots of people will be asking the question, well, how much of this is the weather and how much of it is the water companies failing us without sort of proper preparations, etc. I don't know the answer to that question. Obviously, the weather has got something to do with it, but I think levels of trust in the water companies are really low. We've got one region of the UK that is, where homes are without water. It's just not good enough.
And investors are fearful that the Burnham government might actually take Thames Water into public ownership. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say they're moving towards. I mean, it looks like a model a bit similar to what's happening with the railways, that as companies run into difficulties, although, of course, with the railways, they have a time-limited franchise. Andy Burnham, the government, already spoken about Thames Water. It looks like there's going to be a court battle. But the problem, of course, is that you refer to them as investors, but they're people who've invested financially in these water companies, but have not kept up the level of investment in the water services, building reservoirs, repairing pipes, and all the rest of it. And Thames Water has a terrible record on leakage. And, there are other parts of the country that already have hosepipe bans, for example, in Kent. Now, Kent, in Tunbridge Wells, they've actually had their water supply turned off a number of times.
We're going to have to leave it there, but Sonia, Adam, stay with us. For the top of the 11, the new Prime Minister sets out his plans to cut the cost of living, but are the cracks within Labour already beginning to show? Stay with us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier,
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Tonight on The Wrap, Burnham begins. On his first full day as Prime Minister, he tells his cabinet they must be a cost-of-living government. But behind the smiles, cracks already begin to emerge over how he'll pay for his plan to cut taxes. And tonight, Sky News understands that the Scottish Labour leader, Anna Sarwar, who called for Keir Starmer to quit as long ago as February, is to be given a peerage and become another controversial appointment in Andy Burnham's government. Plus, the new Defence Secretary gives Sky News his reaction to the live-fire exercises conducted by a Russian warship in the English Channel.
Performative and irresponsible. It's not the first time that Russia has behaved like this, and frankly, it's the tip of the iceberg of the daily threats that this country faces.
Prosecutors claim that Anne Widdecombe was killed after being struck on the head with a hammer 21 times as she ate lunch. We're going to discuss the day's biggest stories with the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Soda and the political commentator Adam Bolton. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers at 1:30. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Sonia and Adam, welcome both. Now, Andy Burnham began his first full day as Prime Minister with an announcement that he was cutting VAT on energy bills as part of his big push to tackle the cost of living. But just 2 hours later, the infighting began, with his plans criticised by the Labour MP Darren Jones, a man sacked from Downing Street just yesterday. Adam, are you surprised it started so early?
What started so early? You mean the
infighting?
Yeah, I am. Darren Jones was saying, goodbye, see you in September on social media with a picture of himself with a pint. But obviously that didn't stop him from waking up a few hours later and deciding that he was going to have a go. I mean, truth of the matter is, Andy Burnham wanted to do something about cost of living. It may not be that big, but he's done it. He insists it's costed, but there's no detail. And he was being criticised for Darren Jones for having an uncosted proposal, inheriting or saying he was going to replace an uncosted proposal, which the Starmer government had.
But the infighting mainly, Sonia, what do you make of it?
So I think there's clearly a lot of bitterness from some of the individuals that Andy Burnham has chosen to sack. I don't think it's very becoming. I think this is politics. Some of them back the wrong horse. You would expect Andy Burnham to make some changes, but I think when you look at the broad shape of the cabinet, the briefing from sources around those who've been sacked are trying to say, well, it's factional. Actually, I disagree. The cabinet has now got people in from all sides of the party, and I think it shows that Andy Burnham sort of wants to govern by consensus in his party.
We'll discuss that in more detail during the next hour, but can Mr Burnham really deliver on his promise to tackle the cost of living and give people a sense that help is coming? Our political editor Beth Rigby reports.
The morning after a reshuffle that stretched late into the night, the same Labour government, but now a new-look cabinet, as Andy Burnham's allies took the top jobs.
Lucy Powell, are you happy to be Education Secretary? Yeah, and can you keep the party united? Shabana Mahmood, are you disappointed not to be Chancellor? Happy with your job? Ed Miliband, are you happy to be Foreign Secretary, sir? You not sad about the Chancellorship, sir?
As Andy Burnham's allies took top jobs in a ruthless purge of those loyal to the last leader.
Wes Streeting, can the party unite in this cabinet? Isn't it a vicious cull of Starmer allies, sir? Angela Rayner, can the party stay united under Andy Burnham? Is it a nest of singing birds, sir? Johnny Reynolds, can the party remain united, sir?
Some of the old guard who called for Starmer to go themselves stayed, joined in the Downing Street gardens by the Burnham backers who got their man here. Burnham convening his very first cabinet.
Can I just say, I expect this every meeting.
At the height of his power and with a very clear message.
We need to be a cost of living government. Life's hard out there, isn't it, at the moment?
Burnham using his first full day in office to make a down payment on his pledge to give people a bit more breathing space, with a cut to VAT on energy bills from October the 1st, saving you £45 a year and costing the government £850 million.
We've made a start today. We made the announcement about removing VAT from household electricity bills. It's not everything, but it shows our determination to do something about people's living standards. And it kind of points the way for further measures that we hope to take that pressure off people. But also it comes with reprioritisation. And you'll have seen what I said about digital ID.
Burnham dropping plans for new ID cards to pay for cuts to energy bills, whilst seeking to reassure the markets his more left-wing government will maintain fiscal discipline.
We've got to show that our commitment to the fiscal rules is real, and we're prepared to make difficult decisions in relation to that.
But for all the smiles in the cabinet room, the Labour Party not a nest of singing birds. Burnham's first major policy announcement already facing soundings off. As former Chief Secretary to the PM and architect of the Digital ID programme, Darren Jones, tweeted the scheme was unfunded and that the government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget. Payback perhaps for the purge, Harriet Harman unimpressed.
I need to speak to my colleagues who've been sacked from the cabinet and just say nobody wants to hear bitterness and resentment, and everybody wants this new regime to succeed, and that's for the good of the country and for the good of the party.
Burnham has made much of ending factionalism and bringing the Labour Party back together. But his cabinet picks were anything but, with 11 Starmer loyalists purged from the top table and another couple only hanging on by their fingertips. This may have been a bloodless coup, but this reshuffle was vicious, and some of the bad blood spilled was on show today. After talking a good game on unity, Burnham's first act failed to follow through. The next act is getting on with the job and cutting the cost of living. This something Starmer promised too, but failed to land. Burnham wants his new team to succeed, but his reshuffle may well make that a harder task. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
And our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins us now with news of ministerial appointments and in particular of Anna Sarwar. Exactly.
Here it is. This is the government announcement with the crest on the front, as we always get. And, of course, there's one name that's missing, and that is Anna Sarwar, because we were talking, it's leaked out this evening, somebody's let the cat out of the bag, that he expects to be a Minister of State for Trade. No mention of him here on this list, and he's clearly hoping to go to the House of Lords. This is the same Anna Sarwar, of course, who led Labour in Scotland to a very bad result in May. There were calls for him to go. He was asked, are you going to stay or quit? No, I'm going to stay on. Are you going to the Lords? No, absolutely not. I looked it up in 2022. He did a big event calling for abolition of the House of Lords. Anyway, perhaps he'll get some good news tomorrow. So what we have tonight are, finally, there are 16 ministers of state, that's middle-ranking ministers, have been appointed. Some familiar names, and many of them have gone back to jobs they've done before. Dan Jarvis, former Defence Secretary, back to Security Minister at the Home Office, job he did before. Kirsty McNeil from Scotland Office to Foreign. James Murray, who was briefly the Health Secretary, has gone back to the Treasury, a job he's done before. Lucy Rigby's kind of slight demotion. Anna Turley, the chair of the Labour Party, goes to the Home Office, Minister of State. Catherine McKinnell, sacked in the last reshuffle. Back in government, Ministry of Justice, she's a solicitor. Katie White, Energy Specialist, Energy. Andrew Weston, Minister, Work and Pensions, that's a sideways move for him, I think, or might be a promotion. Diana Johnson, she's been moved about a bit, Health. Florence Eshalomi, she chairs a select committee, Minister of State Housing. Kate Dearden, Minister for all the Angela Rayner employment stuff, Minister of State at Business. Chris MacDonald, he's Business, Innovation and Trade. Quick few more. Ian Murray, once the Scottish Secretary, he is Minister of State Culture. Emma Hardy, Environment, she was there before. Emma Foodie, Whip. Andy Slaughter, who chairs the Justice Select Committee, barrister. He takes over from Ellie Reeves as Solicitor General. 17 reappointed. If you haven't heard me say they're promoted or sacked, they're all staying. And a few have left the government, just two MPs, some peers, Rachel Blake and Nick Dakin have left the government. So we get the junior ministers tomorrow. What'll happen to Mike Tapp? Do you remember the minister that Shabana Mahmood wanted to sack? Well, he's clinging on. Let's see what happens to him tomorrow. Anyway, and let's see what happens to Anna Sarwar tomorrow.
Because remind us, Anna Sarwar was the first, I believe, to say that
back in February. He came out really strongly, called for Keir Starmer to go. If he is appointed a government minister with the perk of a peerage in the House of Lords, opponents will say, you are being rewarded for sticking the knife into Keir Starmer. More of the, if you like, the brutal, ruthless coup of the Burnhamites against the Starmerites.
And I think up in Scotland, the nationalists will say as well, oh, look at Anna Sarwar, lost an election and then going straight back to Westminster as soon as he could get there for a cushy government job. So I'm sure we're going to see some politics
And the
around
nationalists,
that
of course,
Scotland.
don't take peerages. It's one of their policies, isn't it? The Scots don't. But I was just looking at, you know, the potential leaders to take over. They may be household names in Scotland, but they're not household names UK-wide. Jackie Bailey, perhaps everyone knows a little bit from the thing, but I mean, the rest of them, Monica Lennon, Daniel Johnson, Michael Mara, Neil Bibby. I mean...
No.
And they apparently, if Anna Sarwar comes down here, will be competing to be leader of the opposition in Scotland.
Yeah, the results in May, SNP 58, Labour and Reform both 17, Greens 15.
OK, but, you know, that list, does it give you an idea that this is Burnham wanting to have a bit more continuity in the government? What do you make of that list?
Well, there's a few who are... one or two who were sacked by Keir Starmer are back in the government, and it would have been very harsh on Dan Jarvis if he'd been sacked, but he's just gone back to his old job. Likewise, James Murray wasn't Secretary of State for Health for very long.
Although also important to say that some of the people leaving, particularly in the House of Lords, are real experts. I mean, Spencer Livermore, for example.
Yeah, he's on the list.
He's leaving. Patrick Vallance, the Science Minister's leaving. And
Lord Timpson, yeah.
Lord Timpson, you know, who did in prisons. And then also, of course, Jenny Chapman, who was, to a certain extent, the right-hand woman of Keir Starmer, a close advisor. They're all going. So there's fresh blood coming in, but there is quite a lot of expertise being lost from the government.
I think we'll see more fresh blood tomorrow. Perhaps some of the 24 intake will get jobs. Some of them have already.
Well, Miata Van Buller already there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I suppose we've seen some fresh policies, if you can call them that cut to VAT on electricity bills that he's announced, and already a lot of controversy over is it funded, is it not?
Yeah, that's right. We're expecting, and in fact the Mirror is reporting today, that we are going to see a £2 cap on bus fares. There's been lots of speculation about some remarks that he made in an interview around the personal allowance, the rate at which people start beginning to pay tax. Is that going to go up? Actually, the papers suggest he's taken a step back from that now, perhaps learning that when you make these sorts of comments and hints as Prime Minister, people end up taking them extremely seriously in a sign of things to come. So lots of questions about what are the policies going to be and how are they going to be paid for.
One example, actually, of something that... at the briefing for political correspondents this afternoon, there was a question, what are you going to do about the Chagos Islands, that policy? Oh, nothing to say on that at the moment. There will be an update. We're sticking to our policy, so that set that one running.
Yeah, and on
potential
top of similar answers on
juries,
ending jury trials, and also on the question of an accelerated early release programme for prisoners. So they clearly want to change that policy, but the question will be whether the harsh realities of the options within government actually leave them pretty much back in the same place in the end.
I'd love to know what was said in the phone call between President Trump and Mr Burnham on the Chagos Islands.
Apparently the tone was friendly,
according to Number 10.
I think the transcript of both.
The President was quite nice about it as well, wasn't he?
Who knows, you know? Well, we'll see.
He's invited him to Manchester. Mr Burnham has invited the President to Manchester. You remember a week or so ago?
Yeah, but Trump called it a town.
Some town, yeah.
Although, interestingly, again, you had sort of people who were around Starmer saying, hey, but that was our decision. We were going to invite him to Manchester, so...
Well, of course, the opposition parties are today claiming that the cut in VAT on energy bills was their idea.
Well, we'll see what happens to that.
Best ideas in politics always get nicked.
Well, unsurprisingly, the Prime Minister's plans feature on the front of The Guardian with the headline, Burnham implores Cabinet to find ways to tackle the cost of living crisis. We will, of course, have a full rundown of what's in the papers at 11:30. But first, the newly appointed Defense Secretary Wes Streeting has accused Russia of being irresponsible after it emerged that a Russian warship fired its weapons in a live-fire exercise yesterday, not far off the coast of Plymouth. Mr. Streeting has been speaking to our security and defense editor Deborah Haynes, who has this report.
Russian naval power nearing UK waters. Sky News filmed this warship in the North Sea as it received supplies from a second vessel. Days later, the same frigate conducted a live fire exercise some 40 nautical miles off the coast of Plymouth. It happened a couple of hours before Andy Burnham was sworn in as Prime Minister. Coincidence? Few think so.
We should see yesterday's events as performative and irresponsible. It's not the first time that Russia has behaved like this, and frankly, it's the tip of the iceberg of the daily threats that this country faces and our allies face.
An immediate test then for Britain's new Defence Secretary. Wes Streeting may be a novice in the role, but his department for once has the backing of a Chancellor who understands the threat and the urgent need to rearm. And that matters.
I'm absolutely delighted that my friend and predecessor, John Healey, has taken on the challenge of Chancellor of the Exchequer. His position on defence investment is on the record, as is mine.
This can surely only mean one thing. Many billions of pounds more must be found for the military, as Healey has previously called for defence spending to rise to 3% of GDP by 2030. The mood inside Defence about Wes Streeting being the new boss is actually pretty optimistic. Yes, he's got no background in military matters, but people I've spoken to point to the fact that he is smart, he's got experience of running a complex department in health, he's a risk taker, he's willing to speak his mind. These are all crucial skills for the new Defence Secretary as he turns his hand to converting what looks set to be an even bigger, faster increase in defence spending in the coming years into hard, credible military power. This former naval officer says the Russian warship and its timely test firing underlines why defence must be a priority for the new government.
The Prime Minister needs to take away from this that this threat, such as it is getting closer and closer to the UK mainland. This is a manifestation of the Russian squeeze.
But a Kremlin spokesman tried to downplay the incident.
All exercises and actions of our warships are carried out in strict accordance with international maritime law. Therefore, there is no need to see any hints here.
Unlikely the Defence Secretary will see it that way. Key, though, will be whether this is the moment the UK really does shift to a war footing. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Okay, well, let's get the thoughts now of Sonia and Adam. Adam, I mean, obviously, Wes Streeting is a very capable politician, but perhaps in a brief that he's not used to when it comes to military knowledge, security, foreign policy, and this just a reminder of the challenges.
Yeah, but he immediately, as a politician, was using this, wasn't he? When he described it as performative, he was basically saying, look, the Russians are sending a message that they want to put the heat on the UK, that they are an aggressor. And that, of course, then feeds into his desire to deliver a strong defence. So that's going to be the challenge now. Can he build up Britain's defences in a way that John Healey felt he wasn't able to do with the settlement he got from Keir Starmer, and now we've got John Healey moving to the Treasury. Presumably, it's assumed much more inclined to try and find the money.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. I think one of the big questions facing us as a country is whether we can find the resources that are needed for defence. I think it's really interesting that Andy Burnham put Wes Streeting, who's widely considered to be quite a capable minister, I think, into this job. I think he and John Healey are now going to have their work cut out for them. But it's another signal that John Healey, who was basically resigned because there wasn't enough money for defence on the table, is now the Chancellor. So in some ways it's his problem, but in other ways we know it's a big priority for him. We know he comes from that brief himself. So I think these are very important jobs, very important questions.
Yeah.
And also important that Britain has absolutely reaffirmed its commitment to Ukraine.
Absolutely.
That we saw from successive Prime Ministers. Andy Burnham is very clear on that, and that obviously has an implication for defence spending as well.
Yeah. Well, of course, Donald Trump wants everyone to increase defence spending, and the relationship with Trump will be key when it comes to NATO, Russia, the Middle East, and everything else. And they had a chat, and apparently, so Downing Street say that the chat was extremely warm between Trump and Burnham, but then you never know. So then Trump, of course, said that the new Prime Minister has got a big job ahead of him, but he will be able to do it. And then Trump pledged that the US will be there to help. Perhaps surprisingly effusive language from President Trump.
Well, I mean, there was a big shift at the NATO summit in Turkey, you know, where basically Donald Trump and the Americans signed up to NATO traditionally as it is, that, you know, it's a mutual defence pact and they'll come to the rescue of members who are attacked, which, you know, prior to that, Trump was saying, you know, who knows, we may not be there if they don't do enough and all that. So this, you know, in a sense, Andy Burnham is taking over as Prime Minister at quite a positive time vis-à-vis Trump's attitude towards mutual defence. He's also, you know, important to note, Andy Burnham is a people pleaser. He's good at dealing with people and charming him and all that. And obviously, it's worked to a certain extent.
He's also said, well, he'll reaffirm that he'll continue letting the US use UK bases in the Middle East for defensive strikes. So that also, I mean, politically wise, that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be surprised if we saw much of a shift in foreign policy between Keir Starmer and Andy Burnham. I think they'll probably have pretty similar approaches. But the challenge will come, of course. You know, these are warm words from Trump at the start. They're about as good as you can get, I would probably say, from Trump at the moment. The challenge will come when he decides to sound off in the same way that he has about Keir Starmer. And I sort of think that probably will happen at some point, just because he's that kind of guy.
And they've already had a bit of badinage about Manchester.
Exactly.
Which Donald Trump...
Mayor of a town.
Yeah, and Andy Burnham's reminded him that it's a city and that he's coming there next year
on a visit. It's quite a big town.
To attend the G20, although actually the decision to locate the G20
also called Burnham
was taken by Starmer, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And he also called Burnham extremely liberal, which one assumes is an insult from Donald Trump. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. And a court hears that Anne Widdecombe was hit on the head with a hammer 21 times during the attack that killed her. We'll have more after the break.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Prosecutors say that former MP Anne Widdecombe was hit on the head 21 times before being found dead at her home in Devon. 28-year-old Joshua Carey has been charged with her murder and remanded into custody. From the Old Bailey, Sky's Amelia Harper has the latest.
Well, 28-year-old Joshua Carey has appeared in court, charged with the murder of the former Tory MP turned Reform UK spokeswoman Anne Widdecombe. He was successfully remanded in custody. Carey is from Rotherham, an area that is 260 plus miles away from Devon, where Anne Widdecombe lived. And he initially appeared in court at Westminster Magistrates Court before being moved here to the higher court at the Old Bailey. And the reason for this is because a murder charge can only be heard at a Crown Court due to the seriousness of the alleged crime. These are the prosecution allegations that were set out today. Prosecutors allege that Anne Widdecombe was hit over the head 21 times with a hammer while she ate her lunch at her home in Devon. In their words, prosecutors called this a planned and targeted attack. They allege that Carey arrived at the property on the 8th of July, having arrived in a red Vauxhall Corsa before entering the property through the front door. They say, allegedly, he was only in the property for about 2 minutes before he hit Anne Widdecombe over the head. He then took her wallet before exiting the property. And the court also heard today how Anne Widdecombe, on the day of her death on the 8th of July, was meant to have attended an online interview with Channel 5. However, when producers failed to get in touch with her, they then got in touch with her assistant, who then asked her gardener to go and check on her. This then happened the next day on the 9th of July, where prosecutors say her gardener found her with serious head injuries on her kitchen floor. Then on the 11th of July, a few days later, Carey was arrested in Rotherham on suspicion of her murder. And of course, police continue to try to understand any potential motivation behind Anne Widdecombe's death. This was the first time that Carey appeared in court. He didn't indicate any plea. That will happen a little later. Some of the dates we need to look out for: the 9th of October, this is when he'll next appear here at the Old Bailey for a case management hearing. Then in November, we are expecting a plea hearing. Then in June 2027, that is when a provisional trial date has been listed.
Amelia Harper reporting there. Well, it's time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. Well, the Metro reports on that story we were just covering, the court appearance of the man accused of murdering Anne Widdecombe, including the allegation from prosecutors that she was hit 21 times in the head with a hammer. The suspect, Joshua Carey, is pictured on the front of the Mirror being driven away from court. And the same image appears on the front of the Express. The Sun are also reporting on that story. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads with Andy Burnham urging his newly formed cabinet to put the cost of living at the centre of their efforts. The Eye carries that rallying cry, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. But according to the Financial Times, the new Prime Minister has already abandoned discussions around increasing the personal income tax allowance. The Daily Mail asks the question of who is going to pay for Andy Burnham's spending plans. The Times suggests the answer could come in the form of public spending cuts. Meanwhile, the Telegraph hears that 2 men jailed for killing police officer Andrew Harper could soon be released as part of an attempt to ease overcrowding in prisons. Let's look at the papers in more detail with Sonia and Adam. Obviously, Andy Burnham, day 2 now, or day 3 tomorrow, of the new government on most of the front pages. Daily Mail asking the question, who's going to pay the bill for Andy's largesse? And I suppose today we had that announcement about the VAT cut to electricity prices and a lot of questions about where the money's going to come from.
Well, a simple answer is whatever the government spends, the taxpayer pays for it. So, and indeed, if the government borrows, the taxpayer pays for it in higher interest rates. So in a sense, that is a statement on the front of the Mail that could be made about all governments. What's interesting is that the Times is saying that Andy Burnham is already signalling that there will have to be cuts in departments, which, of course, somewhat cuts across his optimistic message yesterday. And already it's becoming clear from the newspaper reports that there is going to be a considerable delay on some of those promises. For example, raising the threshold at which people start paying tax. It's quite clear that that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Sonia, Burnham said it was going to be one Labour Party, but something like this headline in the Times that there might be, spending cuts is going to cause havoc in the party.
Definitely, and I think it's really interesting that when you look at who he's kept in the Work and Pensions brief, Pat McFadden, he's a reformer. He's somebody who wants to drive welfare reform through. That's what got Keir Starmer into a lot of hot water with his own party. I think the question will be for Andy Burnham. He's a very different character. He's created quite a sort of unity cabinet, I think. Is he going to be able to pitch this better to his backbenchers in a way that takes them along with him?
And he does have one thing going for him, as he keeps on saying, he is the last chance. So, it will be very difficult, I think, for his MPs to rebel against him. Because there is no alternative. There would definitely be a general election in which they'd almost certainly be thrown out. But B, because so many of them said they wanted Andy Burnham. And the interesting thing will be whether he is a weak leader like Sir Keir Starmer, who ends up trying to appease his backbenchers, or whether he has a showdown with them and says, listen, I'm the boss, this is what we've got to do in the interest of the country. I have to say, my money would probably be on the latter at the moment. But it will be interesting to see, because a lot of people say Andy Burnham just likes to please people.
What do you think, Sonia?
I think he does like to please people, but I think there's more to it than that. There is absolutely no way that man would have got himself from Mayor of Greater Manchester into Parliament and then Prime Minister all within the space of, 6 weeks or whatever it was, if he didn't have a bit of an edge to him. So I don't buy this line that, he's just a people pleaser and won't do anything to be difficult. I think he's clearly shown that he's also quite ambitious for himself, but also hopefully the country.
Yes. A very interesting line in the Times. I mean, obviously, we've spent the past 2 days looking at who's in, who's out in the cabinet. Rachel Reeves, unsurprisingly, out. But in the Times, it says that she turned down 2 key posts, education, but also defence. What have you made of that, Adam?
Well, it's interesting because yesterday it was being reported that she'd been offered defence, and that was actually denied. But now the Times has dug into this and suggesting she was offered defence. I mean, my feeling was that she would probably have seen defence as an offer that was designed for her to refuse, and they could say, well, we offered her a big job, and She turned it down because, of course, it'd be very difficult for her to move into defence when she was the bone of contention with John Healey over defence spending. But what's interesting is if they were actually offering her education as well, they clearly, you know, all this talk of factionalism, there was clearly a desire to keep her in.
And education is a big job, a high-profile job.
And if she spurned it, you know, then it shows that, you know, there's quite a lot of bad blood flowing in both directions over this. And it also raises the interesting question as to had Rachel Reeves accepted it, and it may explain why John Craig was in Downing Street so late yesterday, it took so long, what would they have done with Lucy Powell, the deputy leader of the party? You know, so we're back to what ifs and sliding door moments. But clearly, Rachel Reeves, you know, resentment was so great that she decided she didn't want to serve as a cabinet minister.
Let's focus on someone who did get one of the top jobs. That's Ed Miliband, of course, as Foreign Secretary. If we look at page 13 of the Eye, apparently the White House views him as an extremist. So apparently he's gotten good name recognition, but for all the wrong reasons. And it's interesting because we heard that Trump and Burnham had quite a sort of warm phone call.
Yeah, so these are sort of noises coming from people around the administration, not the administration itself, but from Trump allies saying, oh, Ed Miliband is sort of seen as an extremist is how one person sort of, in quote marks, what they say. I mean, Ed Miliband is very associated with the net zero agenda here in the UK. He's been Energy Secretary. It was a brief he was very dedicated to, a brief that I think is perceived to have done very well at. But that is not Trump's favourite
topic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, from Trump's point of view, he's Mr. Windmills, and we know that Trump does not like windmills, and also we know Trump has said he thinks it's insane that the UK is not exploiting its North Sea oil and gas.
Well, that's why he tweeted about that or posted on Truth Social just the weekend. Yeah. OK. So you don't think this will damage Ed Miliband, or we'll just have to wait?
Well, it might create some tensions in the relationship. Who knows? I personally think Donald Trump is so unpredictable, so difficult to manage. I mean, how much... if he's going to find a bone of contention to pick with the UK, he will mouth off.
But, I mean, you know, the real question is, to what extent do foreign secretaries matter anymore?
Yes.
I mean, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, is clearly second fiddle to Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
And Hegseth as well.
We were just saying, I always think Defence Secretary is a more important job.
Yeah, so he and Ed Miliband, and Ed Miliband can talk to the heart's content.
I think they're going to the ASEAN summit tomorrow.
But I mean, so that's why he's gone to the Philippines. But I mean, foreign policy is determined from the White House and from number 10.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break now. We'll take a look at more of the top stories in tomorrow's papers after that.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Time now for a closer look at what's making tomorrow's papers. And if we look at the front page of The Telegraph, a story that sort of has two sides to it. Thames Water brings in hosepipe ban. That's meant to start on Thursday as it fights nationalisation. Now, Adam, in fairness, there have been 3 heat waves, I think. You know, the weather's been incredibly hot, more so than normal. But a lot of people will have doubts whether it's just the heat and it's not just Thames Water not being efficient.
Yeah, I mean, Thames Water is one of the biggest companies, 10 million customers, so it's going to affect a lot of people. Of course, it's not just to water your garden, it's to clean things, clean the street and all that. And streets in London are beginning to smell a bit, as they often do when it hasn't rained for a long time. So, you know, this is a serious issue. And, of course, it's going to be very much in the news and public focus because the Burnham government clearly suggesting that they want to move towards public ownership or certainly public supervision of the water companies on the basis that the neoliberalism which led to the privatisation of the water industry is something which Andy Burnham's described as a wrong turning.
And this is something that people will feel with the hosepipe ban.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to impact on people, you know, gardens, paddling pools, washing their cars. We've obviously been there before as a country, but I think people will be asking the question, how much of this is the weather? How much is it, you know, water companies that really aren't up to scratch, not preparing? What's interesting is that actually reservoirs, there's been very little rain, but reservoirs are quite full. But, you know, to be fair, there have been 3 heat waves, as we were just saying.
Yeah.
And there are meant to be 2 more coming, aren't there? I think?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Can you still use a watering can? You can, I think.
Yeah, you
yes,
can use a watering can. I use a watering can anyway because I just have sort of pots on my balcony. It's a bit easier than if you've got a garden. You can do it the old-fashioned way.
Hosepipe. Yeah. Anyway, but speaking of heat waves, interesting take on page 3 of the Metro. Apparently, a mega heat wave created life as we know it. Now, in fairness, it was a long time ago, 201 million years ago, and it was very, very warm. Sonia, what's the story?
Yeah, so 201 million years ago, there was apparently a big heat wave that wiped out pretty much a lot of life on Earth at the time. Really quite significant increases in temperature. So average temperatures soared by 10 degrees centigrade during the Triassic-Jurassic event, wiping out 3/4 of all life on Earth. And that wiped out a lot of dinosaurs, yes, some dinosaurs. Yeah. And it meant, you know, new forms of life came into being, maybe even the inceptions of what would one day become humans.
Yeah, so, over hundreds of...
yeah, I mean...
centuries. I mean,
don't worry, I'm not saying there were humans on the planet 201 million years ago.
We weren't around with the dinosaurs, but I mean...
No.
But from our point of view, I think the concern is the wipeout rather than the start of new forms.
You never know about it. We might get replaced by something better.
Yeah, it doesn't help us, though.
No, it doesn't help us. You're right, yeah.
Anyway, let's end on a story, page 17 of the Eye.
Yes.
And it's Prince George, who tomorrow, turns 13, so officially a teenager. And you can see there's pictures there of him looking a bit older, and next to his mum, of course, and a very cute toddler picture on the left.
Yes, there were lots of papers with articles about this momentous event, Prince George turning 13, becoming a teenager, and what's in store for him. And quite interesting musings, I think, on the differences between his childhood and the childhood of his dad when he was, Dad Prince William, and how actually William and Catherine have succeeded in protecting their children to a greater extent, I think. You know, times have moved on. They've had a more normal childhood, I think, than William and Harry, which is a good thing. But obviously, I mean, I can't help but feel sorry for this poor 13-year-old because he's born into a life he's got absolutely no escape from.
Very briefly.
No, I think the key to this is the Middleton family and Catherine Middleton's family, who are more ordinary. They are middle class rather than aristocratic. And, you know, interesting detail here about a cake apparently of 2 breasts given to William by his mother when he was 13.
I was quite shocked to read that, actually. I hadn't heard that before.
And she had supermodels on standby, so very sexualised 13. Clearly not what's happening now with George.
Gonna have to leave it there. Adam, Sonia, thank you both so much. Thank you. And coming up in the sport, they may have had a famous falling out, but Sir Alex Ferguson has paid a glowing tribute to former Newcastle manager Kevin Keegan.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the President? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism? I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro,
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a 4th indictment?
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Oof. OK, nothing to see here. Drama over.
Full stop.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
She will be mortified because she's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Time to get all the sport now with Mike.
Right, let's talk Wimbledon. And from a British perspective, the real headline has come from breakthrough star Arthur Ferry, who was handed a wild card to the tournament but progressed to the semi-final. As you can see, very pleased to say that Arthur joins me now. Arthur, really good to see you. Huge congratulations. What a journey you've been on the past fortnight. Can you even begin to start to sum it up?
Yeah, it's been an incredible fortnight. 6 matches and lots of firsts for me. It's going to take a while to all sink in and process it all, but yeah, it's been incredible.
Because you look at the stats, I mean, you became only the second wild card in men's singles history to make it to the semi-finals. You were ranked 114th in the world when you entered this tournament. Before it began, did you ever imagine that you could get through to the semi-finals?
Yeah, I've always had a lot of self-belief in my ability to play against the top players in the world, and yeah, it was just a matter of stringing wins together, and you know, in those slams, if you want to do well, you have to win a lot of matches. So yeah, that was the case. Past 2 weeks, I was able to back up wins with more good tennis and keep going. So yeah, I've always had the self-belief, and it was, yeah, in my eyes, just a matter of time.
And of course, beyond that second round in the singles, you were kind of Britain's only hope as we went through the tournament. Did you feel that level of expectation a lot more as the tournament progressed?
Not so much. I mean, I think there was a lot of attention anyway as a Brit, and yeah, the last Brit definitely contributed to that as well. But no, I was just trying to focus on myself and yeah, play for myself and just focus on one match at a time.
One of the matches that a lot of people are talking about is that Grigor Dimitrov match, because he's so well loved at Wimbledon as well. You then also beat Kabali in straight sets. When you were playing those matches, how are you feeling in yourself? Because these guys, you know, seeded in the top 10 in the world, and you're beating them. Does that make you think, you know, I can really compete against these guys?
100%. The match against Dimitrov was, yeah, my first one on centre court and the second 5-set win in a row, so it was really a special moment. And then playing Kabali in quarters, my first quarter-final in a Grand Slam. He'd done it before, but I felt like I was really confident that I could beat him. I'd beaten him in Australia, and that really helped me to believe that I could get it done.
Yeah. Then the game against Alexander Zverev. What are your takeaways from that one?
Yeah, it was another step up against Alex Zverev. Yeah, an incredible player. He was riding off that win at Roland Garros and was playing with a lot of confidence. Very tough to return his serve, and he was playing freely. So difficult, but yeah, a lot.
And now let's take a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, heatwave conditions will return for some over the next few days, but it will be largely dry, though the weekend will bring changes. Some northern and eastern parts will have a grey start tomorrow with a little rain in places. Elsewhere, it will be largely dry and clear, but a few fog patches cannot be ruled out. Expect a mainly dry morning with long, sunny spells for most.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, that was the wrap. Thank you for watching. All the top stories coming up right here on Sky News.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration.
Sky News, get the full story first.